but she particularly enjoyed visiting Marlene, and I'll tell a little story about Dina and Marlene, in the course of the eulogy. Just making sure everyone can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to preface my... You can hear me okay? Great. I just want to preface my words by, saying as a rabbi for a nursing home, this is not the first funeral I've had the honor of officiating at, but it was probably one of the most unique ones in the sense that I got a lot of coaching. So I got a lot of good advice and direction, certainly from Marlene herself, and I got a lot of good advice and coaching from her family. So as a rabbi, hopefully I'm fulfilling all the requirements of my coaches, and I don't let them down. So I'll talk a little bit about Marlene and the coaching and advice that she gave, in this context. But we'll start first with some of the Psalms. But I think that one of the most important lessons we can learn from her life is that she was a go-getter, an independent lady who didn't always care so much. In some ways, she cared very much about what the world thought. She wanted to be fashionable and attractive, and she wanted to be on top of the trends. But in some things, she didn't really care very much about what the world thought. She had her own way, her own map, her own process, and she was going to do it truly in her own way. There were times that she was very difficult and grouchy and kind of under the weather, but there were times she was a lot of fun and very enjoyable, very pleasant, and had great stories and things about life that were so tremendously exciting and interesting about the things that she had accomplished. We start with a selection from the Psalms. We read the familiar Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo yikzar, b'nais neshech yarbitzeni, al mei menuchos yenachaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech v'geit salmaves, lo yirara ki ata imadi, shiftecha u'mishantecha hima yenachamoni, tarach lefanai shulchan neged sarai, yishante v'shem roshi, kosi revaya, achtov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavte b'veis Adonai, la'arech yamim. Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down, beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul. He leads me on paths of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the view of my torments. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days. It's also the custom to read the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor. It talks about a lady in different circumstances, about a husband. It talks about different things that weren't always applicable, but there's many, many beautiful characteristics, that all the women that we talk about certainly share. Eshet Chayil miyimsa, le'rachach mipnei michra, batach ba'lev bala, le'shol le'yksar, gamal su tov v'lo ra, kol yemei chayecha, darsha etzemer ufishtim, v'tas v'chapetz kapecha. Haisa kini aisoicher, mimerchak tavi lachma, v'takam ba'od laila, v'titin teref, lavesa l'chok narosecha, zamama sadeva tikachechu, mipri kapecha natu karem, chagra ba'oz masnecha, v'tamid zoresecha, tama ki taiv sachra, l'yichbe ba'laila neira, yedecha shilcha v'kishor, v'kapecha tamku fale, chapa parsa liani, ve'yedecha shilcha le'evyon, v'sirim besa mishaleg, ki kol besa, levush shanim. Marvadi masasala, sheish v'argman levusha, loda b'sharim bala, v'shif da'im ziknei aretz, sadi masasa v'timkor, v'chagar nasnu k'nani, oz v'hadar levusha, v'tischek l'yam acharoin, bicha pascha v'hachma, v'saretz chased al yishayna, Sophia halichais besa, Belechem asus loisochel. Kamu vanecha vayeshura, Vala vayehala, Rabus panus nasochayel, Yatalis akulana. Sheker chain vehevel hayofi, Isha yiras adinai hi tishalel. Tenu la mipri yadecha, Ihalucha, Visharim maasecha. An accomplished woman who could find far beyond pearls is her value. Her husband's heart relies on her, and he shall lack no fortune. She seeks out wool and linen, and her hands work willingly. She is like a merchant ship, from afar she brings her sustenance. She rides as well as nighttime, and gives food to her household and a ration to her maidens. She envisions a field and buys it, from the fruit of her handiwork she plants a vineyard. With strength she girds her loins and invigorates her arms. She discerns her enterprise is good, so her lamp is not snuffed out by the night. Her hand she stretches out to the distaff, and her palms support the spindle. She spreads out her palm to the poor, and extends her hands to the destitute. She fears not snow, for her household is clothed with scarlet wool. She makes a cloak to sell, and delivers a belt to the peddler. Strength and majesty are her raiments. She joyfully awaits the last day. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and a lesson of kindness is on her tongue. She anticipates the ways of her household, and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise and praise her. Her husband he lauds her. Many daughters have amassed achievements, but you have surpassed them all. False is grace, and vain is beauty. A God-fearing woman, she should be praised. Give her the fruits of her hands, and let her be praised in the gates by her very own deeds. Sometimes when you offer eulogy, the purpose is to share about a person's life, tell their story, so to speak. But there is also an aspect that it's a chance for us to seek apologies from them. Maybe we didn't do something that they wanted us to do. Maybe we bothered them in some way. I know she has a wonderful family, and you guys have been very good to her. But I think me personally, I learned a lot about the things I didn't do right as a rabbi in some ways with Marlene. I could do so with a little bit of a laugh, because sometimes Marlene was a little over the top in her talking to me and all that, but certainly there was truth in it. And there were things that I got from it that helped me to understand better what people's needs were and how I related to people. So in the time that Marlene was in the nursing home, I saw her in the hallways. I stopped by, at times to see her when she was eating her meals. And I always felt that it was just good enough, just saying hello. I felt we got to know each other a little bit. I'd done my duty, so to speak, as a rabbi. But very often, Marlene would say to me, aren't we going to talk? Aren't you going to get to know me? And I didn't really know Marlene yet, and I didn't really know what that meant. And so I thought it was just her way of, let's have a nice conversation. Let's do something a little bit different. But it started to get a little more serious. She looked at me with kind of concern, a little bit of disappointment, and she says, Rabbi, we really need to meet and to talk. I have a lot of things to tell you. And I could tell she was pretty serious, and I could tell I needed to make an appointment with her. And that I did. And, and that gave me an insight into Marlene, is that she had high expectations. She expected a lot from other people. But at the same time, the side of it that was very good was it was really important for her to know the rabbi, to have a relationship with me, for me to understand who she was. Just to have that, that was something she really, really valued. Maybe that's from her roots from her grandparents. Maybe it made her feel more centered in the home. Or also just simply she had a very interesting life. She had a lot to share. And it wasn't always easy in the nursing home to find people to share it with. But she really gave me gentle rebuke. And I really learned that sometimes, when a person gives you rebuke and you listen, it's not all bad. You do what they're told, you do what you're told, you don't question, and, you become a better person. And so that's where this all started. I can't claim and say I was some great rabbi from Marlene and we got to know each other so well. She was the one who really started it. And so much so that when she had to have this big surgery, and she, was knowing that her life wasn't going to be so simple, she wasn't sure what was going to happen afterwards, she was the one who took the reins and said that, Rabbi, we got to really sit down. I don't want my funeral to come and just, you say what you think is my life story, you talk to my family, they'll help you, but I want you to get it right. So she sat me down and she told me a lot about her life and, a lot of details. But then it got a little complicated because I know from talking to her family that some of the details weren't exactly correct. So you're the rabbi. What do? You want to present exactly the way the story was given to you, by Marlene, but you also have a commitment to truth. You have a commitment to the family and to do the right thing. And so I felt like sometimes, the way that the rabbis often answer a question is not by exactly giving you ask them, it's A or is it B? They give you a C. So for today's service, we're going to be given the C, which is both A and B, which makes up the C. Because I think that it is important to have truth. It is important to tell the story the way it's supposed to be told. But I think part of the respect and love that you guys gave to Marlene, and part of her presence, and what made her feel good as a person, was that she could be the person she wanted to be. Maybe she wasn't exactly this person, but if in her mind she felt she was this person, and people treated her that way, they gave her a lot of joy and a lot of respect, self-respect for herself. So we're going to try to do a little bit of both. And if I don't do it right, I don't mean any disrespect to anyone. So Marlene was born July 27th, 1946, to her parents Sylvia and Leonard. And her Hebrew name is Masha, the daughter of Label, Leonard's Hebrew name. And her parents were good parents, very caring and loving people. And even though they had more than 20 years in age between the two of them, they understood each other, and they were able to raise a nice son and a nice daughter. She grew up in the 147th Street area in the Kinsman neighborhood. She was there for a few years, enjoyed the nice Jewish neighborhood that she was born into. And then at age 7, the family moved up to Shaker Heights. Her father was a hard worker. He delivered, newspapers and did other things, and he transitioned, into a much better job, a better paying job in the home construction industry. Something that his father and his grandfather, had already set the stage for as carpenters and master carpenters. And this new job gave him the resources to build a beautiful home, a home that they had always wanted on Shaker Boulevard. And that was a very big endeavor and a very big accomplishment. And he was very proud that he was able to bring his family to that particular home. And I know that Marlene talked about it a lot. For her it was a very big milestone that her family could be there as well. But one of the first things she talks about, besides the house, is Leo, the brother that I guess you guys sometimes used to fight, but used to love each other very much. And you guys were very close together, and you very much cared about each other. And it's not about how similar or dissimilar you are, but you guys were brother and sister, and you stuck up for each other no matter what. And I think that's why Marlene also, the next thing she spoke about, when in her last words, what was most important to her, was about your kids, Leo and Judy, how important you guys are and how your kids are to her. And that was a tremendous sense of her identity and her importance and her relevance in this world. And even though she, at that time, wasn't feeling so good and her energy was very low, she could get all the names correct, all of your children, and all of them were correct. I don't think she missed any of them. Her own childhood, she speaks about as having very good memories. The ice skating at the pond across the streets, the watching the soap operas with her grandparents. And she spoke about, in particular, her grandmother, who was very traditional in many ways. She kept Shabbos, she kept kosher, but yet she was very progressive. She was very hip with the times. And she seemed to describe Zadie and Bubby in front of the TV, how they would all watch soap operas together. So that's certainly an interesting cross-section of cultures and situations, on those sessions. She shared how she was a Girl Scout, and she shared how her mom, was from a family of 8, and it was always very important to visit the grandparents, always important to be near them and be part of their life. And like I said before, they lived right near in the Kinsman neighborhood, right near the Kinsman Jewish Center, and they're very much part of the Jewish life down there as well. The thing about Arlene is that she went to school, but she wasn't terribly excited about school. The identity of a student wasn't particularly important, and in fact, not that she didn't mention it, she actually mentioned that she didn't like being in school. I guess what she had said, what motivated her, was she wanted to be successful financially like her dad. And she felt that she could do it without school. She didn't need all the help of the books to get her to the place that she wanted to be. But yet, she spent a little bit of time talking about Ohio State, and how she was very excited that she could attend Ohio State. But she didn't mention something that Leo told me, was that she didn't last there for so long. She was only there for about 5 weeks. But again, in her identity, the fact she went to Ohio State, she got all the way there, was something that was very, very important to her. And, there's a part that she talks about in her life, which we don't know all the details. Some of it may have been a little bit of her hopes, in her fantasies. But she's mentioned how she had a love in retail fashion. And she had a lot of time experiences with stores and marketing and buying and selling. And she helped a lot of stores get off the ground, especially those in Eastgate. But we don't know exactly how successful she was. But again, in her mind, this was something very important to her, something that she had created and something she was very proud of. But it could be why she focused so much on that was because she definitely expressed her love of fashion, her own clothing attire, and her own wardrobe. And so I don't even know if there's words enough to describe, but she was very into bold stuff. The boldest of the lipsticks, the boldest of the makeup, the boldest of the fashion. She always wanted to have the latest and the greatest, and she enjoyed being noticed with what she had on her garment. And something she said, which I don't think Leo and Judy, were at all familiar with this, because maybe it wasn't exactly in the news, but she said she was even part of a fashion show at Gates Mills, and she almost described walking down the runway, showing off her latest fashions, so maybe she came this close to it happening, so it was though it almost happened. But when her career really started to take off was when she went to Ohio Savings one day, and she decided to get started at the bottom somewhat in customer service. But she had explained that they saw very quickly that she had a tremendous aptitude in a particular area that was not well known to her family. So they discovered an aptitude that she had for mathematics. And so some say she wasn't particularly good at mathematics, but it seems that Ohio Savings discovered some great talents in mathematics, and she became able to rise up the corporate ladder there. And she went from a customer service person to a person who was more involved in selling financial products, in stocks in particular. And she shared how she loved this part of her job because she was constantly engaging with successful people, and she was always curious how they made it to be so successful. And she loved asking them their stories and seeing how they made their wealth and getting to know them in a personal basis. One thing that was also interesting was that she described her social life as being very extensive. That she had a very busy party life and a very busy social life, and she was really immersed in the life of an independent woman who was very financially successful and very socially successful, and she was just so busy with that it was difficult for her to settle down and to find herself. And in particular, it was hard to find the right guy, in this situation that she had. But I think we all know her a little bit differently. That she was a much less socially active, much more family, oriented with a family type of a person, and she just didn't find the right guy because she just didn't want to or didn't, have the ability to find the right person, for all the things that she had going for her. But again, it just shows, how important it was for her to be noticed and to be important to people, how for people to look up to her. And again, in the middle of this whole conversation, she kept on coming back to Leo and how much she loved him and how close she was to him. And she said it did not matter that sometimes you guys would fight about things and disagreed. She always felt that you were her brother and that you guys were very close, very connected to each other. But one of the most important people in her life wasn't really a person, but had a personality. And that was, of course, her feathery parrot, George. And so, he definitely has to be mentioned. And I was told by Judy more than once that he has to be mentioned. And apparently they had a very close relationship. And when you have a parrot, they live for a long time, so you can't really mess up because they remember. So apparently she and George were on very good speaking terms. So again, her career improved, and I think she moved to Dean Witter, and she had some more successes there. She dipped a toe or two into the synagogue life, but it really wasn't for her. I understand that she went to Warrensville Central Synagogue for a little bit with Rabbi Muskin, and maybe that was too orthodox for her, I'm not sure. But then she moved to the more Reformed Temple Israel, and spent a little bit of time there. But I know that when your father passed away, she was very good to Mom, and she took care of her, and she was with her. She had her involvement with Hadassah, and she definitely cared about the Jewish community and Jewish communal needs. And that she moved to Montefiore in 2018. And that's where I just want to talk really quickly about Dina. And we also have some very nice things to read that were written by her family, so I don't want to spend too much time on my own stories. But one of the nice things about Dina, who's on the phone right now, is that she herself, has her challenges. She goes with a wheelchair, and sometimes when she's feeling better, she can go around with some assistance without it. But life is not so simple for her. But she prides herself in helping people to get things done. And so one of the most important things that Dina took upon herself was that when Marlene moved into Montefiore, Dina decided that she needed way more closet space than the regular Montefiore residents. And so I thought I could try the busy rabbi excuse for a few times with Dina. Dina, I'll get to it. I will take care of it. I'll write to maintenance. I'll put on my list of things to do. And I thought eventually Dina would forget. She would, say, oh, okay. And I felt Marlene would be okay if she only had one big wardrobe, type of thing. But Dina did not let it go, and she kept on reminding me, and my excuses didn't really work for her somehow. And so one day she successfully acquired 2 wardrobes, on top of the existing one, and she was one of our only residents with 3 wardrobes. And it definitely shows that she loved clothing, which is something that is not new to us, but it definitely shows that Dina really loved her and really cared for her, and they really respected her needs in a very tender way. So thank you so much, Dina, for visiting her. So I was asked to share some memories from a couple different people. So the first memory is sent from her first cousin, Shelley Heidenbach. Did I pronounce it correctly? So Marlene, Sandy, and I were triplet cousins. This relationship was especially important to me as an only child. We were different. Marlene was very outgoing, and I was shy. Aunt Sil and my mother were on a physical and mental downward slope at about the same time. Marlene and I shared our concerns and funny stories. She told me that Auntie Sil insisted that a lady was sitting in her room staring at her. Marlene had to convince her that it was Marlene's coat on a chair. A few years ago, I took an Ambien for the first time during Passover, not knowing that it would cause sleepwalking and night eating. I told Marlene that I thought that someone had broken into our house and eaten half of a Passover honey cake. Marlene replied, "Who would do that? A gang of wild Orthodox Jewish boys? I will miss her. Love, Shelley." So I kind of chuckled because this morning my son finished our honey cake and there were crumbs all over the table. He's 14 and everyone jokes about how much he needs to eat to keep his growth status, and the honey cake was making it possible. Then there it is. The second is from her cousin Heather, also known as Hezi. I've been thinking about this moment for a long time. Marlene hasn't been well for a long time. The quality of her life kept deteriorating, but she is no longer suffering, which is something I know we all talked about, especially Leo, and it was very important to Leo that he didn't like to see his sister suffering the way that she was. Marlene wasn't an easy person. Somehow she and I kept our relationship on a higher plane. How did I do this? Not completely sure, but the following are examples of our relationship, and these are what I choose to remember. Although we were cousins, we were raised almost like sisters, which may have something to do with it. I affectionately called her Marlene, and she called me Hezi. I have known her my entire life, and our lives are intertwined for the first 12 years of her life. I was born, and I lived in Cleveland until I went off to school. Our families had been so close, as our mothers were so close, like sisters, which they were. I saw them, the Rosens, every week, if not more in the summers. I visited Philly as a child. I would walk to their home from our grandmother's house down the block. Leo and Marlene were close cousins, and I loved to play over at their house. They had a record player for the kids, and we played records on that little player. What wonders I enjoyed there. I left the school at age 18, and really left Cleveland for good then. But the ties were still close. Leo and Marlene lost their father early, and my brother Sandy and myself lost our mother the same year, while cousin Shelley lost her father. What a year for all of us. After my mother passed away, Sil and Marlene played a strong role in helping me over the years, giving me moral support to go on. We helped each other bear the losses. I visited Cleveland and remained in touch with the extended family, coming to visit for weddings and other milestone events. I mostly stayed with Sil and Marlene. Marlene and I remained confidants, but her life seemed to proceed in spurts, not a straight line. Lots of sputtered years. What I liked to dwell on was the love she had for her family, especially her immediate family, including the parents, brother Leo, and sister-in-law Judy, and her nieces and nephews. She loved Georgie, and he was the light of her life. Also, but oh how I remember how she treated the baby nieces and nephews. Never was there a more doting aunt for Hallie's kids than Leslie, then Lindsay had a baby, then Greg.
Haley.
Haley. Sorry. Then Greg. She loved all the kinder to the end, including nephew Bradley. They could do nothing wrong. Marlene was the queen of makeup and hair and fashion. No one had more teased hair and new clothes, always. A fashionista. I used to go through her and Sill's lipsticks to try on as every color was there. What fun. She kept Sill in the height of fashion. Also, Sill wanted for nothing when Marlene cared for her. Marlene and I traveled to the reaches of Alaska and Venezuela on cruises. The Panama Canal was really a highlight along with glaciers, as we cruised both in 1 year. Eventually she wound up in a facility, but I still spoke to her and we discussed all things of interest to her and me, and she kept me up to date on family happenings. I have missed chatty Marlene this last year, and will continue to miss her now that she is gone. She will finally be with her beloved parents, Sill, Leonard, and on her shoulder will be Georgie. May they all rest in peace. So it's a good way to end her eulogies, with the real love that she has from her family. And I think that you guys really made an example, because as much as Marlene was a character and she wasn't so easy, you gave her so much love and caring, and that's exactly what she needed. She needed to be able to be herself, but at the same time she still needed your love and your admiration, and that's what we were all able to give her. And sometimes you don't feel completely successful, because she wasn't the type to say you're wonderful and you're great and give you a big hug, but we should all feel how much we tried, and how much we did indeed give to her. Now we move on in the service, from talking about her special accolades and talking about her as a person, knowing that she heard us and knowing that the words go in, to being able to offer her our comfort, our honor and our respect and our caring in a physical sense by attending to the needs of her burial. So at this moment now we're going to rise if we can, and we're going to go ahead and lower the casket. And because of the precautions due to COVID, what we're going to try to do is just let the staff members do everything. They're going to lower the casket, and then we're going to put in a small amount of earth. And they're going to go away, and then they're going to come back and then finish the process. So we all don't have to get too close. Now place the vault cover on, and once the vault cover is on, that's when the rest of us will go over there and start placing the earth as part of the mitzvah of placing the earth outside.
You don't want to use the shovel. You can just reach your hand into that little. And you don't have to touch the shovel or tap it from one person to the other. So just reach with your hand. There's that right there.
Put our hands
In the tail hand, just so you don't touch the shovel.
As you wish. You could use a shovel with the earth, or you could use your hand and simply grab some sand and place it on top of the casket. As you wish.
Where's the sand at? In the water?
Sand's just in that plastic thing. Just take a scoop of sand and throw it, or you could just do the conventional way. It's one of the COVID precautions.
Just put your hand in the bucket there.
It is.
You guys too.
We'll take a few minutes just covering the top of the casket, and then we'll just resume the rest of the service.
This time it's hard to find exactly the right words to describe the many feelings, the many thoughts that we have. We certainly have our sense of gratitude and our sense of appreciation for all that Marlene gave us and taught us. But in terms of working with the feelings in our heart, and how we should, move on, I wanted to share with you a reading which was written by a person who wanted to give strength and guidance to his own loved ones on his own passing. And he wrote this at a time when he was very sick and ill, and and he wanted to leave this behind as a guide for his family. It's called To Those I Love and Those That Love Me. When I am gone, release me, let me go. I have so many things to see and to do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with tears. Be happy that we had precious years. I gave you my love, you can only guess how much you gave to me in happiness. I thank you for the love you each have shown, but now it's time I traveled on alone. So grieve a while for me, if grieve you must, then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only for a while that we must part, so bless the memories within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on, so if you need me, call, and I will come. Though you can't see or touch me, I'll be near. All of my love around you, soft and clear. And when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and say, welcome home. I just want to close with some quick words that it's really not a coincidence that this important day, that this funeral of our beloved Marlene is taking place on the first day of the Jewish New Year, the day after Rosh Hashanah. And so it's a very important day. It's the first day of the rest of the year. In many senses, the way we start the year, the way we do and we run and we operate on the first day is a good guide for how the rest of the year is going to be. It's a particularly important day to get it right. But the idea of Rosh Hashanah is that even though God is doing very serious stuff, He's judging us, He's figuring out what our future is going to be, He's planning ahead to all the good and sometimes, unfortunately, the bad that has to happen in the year to come. He's already setting aside the year for us. But what are we doing? Well, He's doing that serious stuff. We're wearing the finest clothing, we're eating the most delicious foods, we're indulging in honey cake, we're having a happy day. Because why do we say that? How do we do all that? How come we don't just spend the day in quiet solace and contemplation with fear and with worry, and do everything we can, to kind of convince God that we're serious? But that's not the way the system works. The way the system works is that we know that God cares about us and He loves us and He wants to find the best in us. He wants to see the good. And so that's the way Rosh Hashanah is set up. That even though on a day that God is judging us, He wants us to see that He only sees the good. And therefore He gives us the ability to celebrate and to dress nicely and to enjoy sweet things while such serious things are going on as well. So I think that it's a very, very auspicious thing for Marlene, is that when she's now in the next world and with God, it's a time where there's a lot of compassion and a love and caring, from God to us, and Marlene should only feel that, and she should feel that in heaven she's with her parents, she's with all the people that she has lost, and she should have a sense of love and appreciation and respect as well. And we all know that her suffering is no longer, but she will be remembered and kept in good hearts down here. So my condolences go to her family, particularly to her brother and sister-in-law, and all of her extended family on this loss. So we're going to close by saying the Marlene Rosen prayer. Then after that, we will close the service. El Marlene Rachamim, Sheikhin Bam Romim, Hamsei Menucha Nachayna, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'Malois Kedoshim Utaharim, Kezerakia Masirim, Es Nishmas, Masha Bas Label, Shahalacha Le'alama, Bavor Shanachnu Mispalim B'Haskars Nishmasa, B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasa, L'chein Bal Harachamim, Yastirecha B'Seisa Kanafav Le'olamim, V'Yitzor B'Tzor Chayim Es Nishmasa, Adonai Hu Nachalasa, Nisanuach Mishkava B'Shalom, V'Numar, Amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, for in proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament, for the soul of our Marlene Rosen, the daughter of Sylvia and Leonard, who has gone into her world, and for whom we pray, may her resting place be in the Garden of Eden. May the Master of Mercy shelter her in the shelter of His wings for all eternity, and may He bind her soul in the bond of life. God is her heritage, and may she repose in peace on her resting place. And we say together, Amen. So we all say together towards Leo. We say, Hamakom Yinach Hameschem B'Sof Shar Veli Tzir Shalem. May the omnipresent comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. So now we close the service. We can take leave of the grave. We all pray together that her memory should be for a blessing. So, thank you.
Thank you.